headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I'm Camila Escalante. Social movements are celebrating Day of Democracy in Venezuela with events accompanying the international meeting against imperialism in Caracas. A massive march of Venezuelan social organizations took to the streets defending Venezuelan democracy and the sovereignty of the peoples. International participants of the World Forum Against Imperialism are taking part in the mobilization, which has reached the Miraflores Palace, where they were received by President Nicolas Maduro earlier this afternoon.
We are Bolivarian anti-imperialist and anti-colonial force. We are deeply Chavista and socialist of the 21st century and beyond. If I'm standing here as the constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, it's because I've been loyal to the people and I've stood against the oligarchy and imperialism. I invite the Secretary General of the United Nations, my friend Antonio Guterres. I'm telling you in advance. Venezuela wants the Secretary General to name a commission of electoral accompaniment so that they can be witnesses of the day that the people of Venezuela recuperates its National Assembly in the upcoming constitutional election.
Those social movements who took part in today's march from over 50 countries visited Venezuela for the first World Forum Against Imperialism. Participants hope to create a united plan of response to face off against the interventionist attacks of the United States.
Discussions, debates, meetings between local producers, forums on art, economy, communication, and geopolitics are just some of the events that make up the schedule of the first World Forum Against Imperialism. The start of the forum was marked by a tribute to the late Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, who was slain by U.S. forces early this month.
In the name of our party and of our people, I want to officially open this international meeting of anti-imperialist peoples, for all of you and for the world.
From Venezuela to Syria, from Cuba to Spain, diverse people reject U.S. interests, calling them a distressing presence across the world.
North American imperialism stands against humanity, against liberty, and the self-determination of all people. They may use different names, but imperialism will always be the enemy of global progress.
The reality of Venezuela is seen as an example to follow thanks to the tenacity of its people, who have fought for years against threats and attacks by foreign powers.
You, Venezuelans, comrades, you must resist, have strength, because your fight is fundamental for workers, for your children, for my children, and for all humanity.
While Mike Pompeo and his puppet Juan Guaidó traveled the world, we came together in Caracas to fight for peace, just as they continue to ask for more sanctions against Venezuela.
The forum hopes to establish self-determination, sovereignty, and peace as the guiding principles of global politics.
This is a crucial moment when we must reflect on this geopolitical transition, on our next steps to reach a more plural world. The empire is afraid and is willing to do anything to keep their power. We saw this a few weeks ago when they murdered General Soleimani.
Imperialism is an ideology, and we have a different ideology that stands against them. We are here for socialism, for the development of our people, for equality, for human rights, against racism and sexism.
This forum will also be accompanied by a march of Venezuela's social movements, a meeting with President Nicolas Maduro, and a number of local art shows.
A delegation of the international movement via Campesina is visiting Venezuela. They're spending time with rural communes and interacting with the local Campesino movement. The delegation is made up of representatives of the National Association of Rural and Indigenous Women, Ana Muri of Chile, the ATC Association of Farm Workers of Nicaragua, the Farm Worker Association of Florida, and the coordinator of Farmers and Livestock Organizations of Spain, among other organizations. organizations. This group is on a tour to learn about different productive, communal, and popular solidarity experiences in the states of Lara, Barinas, and Apure. They're also holding exchanges with social and political organizations of Venezuela. The Venezuelan government is delving further into the opposition's ring of corruption, as today marks 1 year since right-wing figure Juan Guaido proclaimed himself president. In a press conference, Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez outlined some of the indications, many of which have been made public by right-wing media, that the opposition's coup efforts have become big business. He added that supposed humanitarian aid funds have been used by different opposition figures for their own enrichment.
A video appears of a man of USAID, which is supposedly an NGO utilized by Trump for a number of different things in order to attack countries, in order to promote coups, to promote conspiracies, to subordinate, to extort. An USAID director personally delivers $52 million to Carlos Vecchio and Julio Borges, of a total of nearly $467 million in humanitarian assistance. In quotes, and this is according to the USAID webpage, as well as $184 million for Venezuelans inside Venezuela. That makes for a total $654 million, and of that amount, USAID has provided more than $435 million. Where is it, Juan Guaido? Where is that $435 million? Let's suppose that the 467, which is the total that USAID was going to hand off, where is the $143.5 million? Where is that supposed $184 million for Venezuelans inside of Venezuela? Is there a Venezuelan in Antimano, in Santa Elena, in Guairén, in Barquisimeto, in Barcelona, in Cumana, who have received even $1 of these $184 million which were given to Juan Guaido? What do the contributors of the U.S. taxpayer system have to say about this money which is given liberally?
¿De qué vive Julio Borges?
What is Julio Borges living off in Colombia in his palace-like home? With what resources is Julio Borges traveling in first class to countries around the world? Who paid for? Who expensed it? How much did Guaido's tour cost to London, to Brussels, and to other European countries? Where does Mr. Juan Guaido get the money, who's had no other position but his position as a member of the National Assembly in contempt?
President Nicolas Maduro received legendary Argentine football player Diego Maradona shortly after his arrival to the Bolivarian Republic this week. The two have always been good friends. In fact, Maradona was in Venezuela during the 2018 presidential elections, where he joined President Maduro for a campaign rally. The footballer, an ally of Latin America's revolutionary processes, expressed gratitude to President Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, for their hospitality and for continuing the legacy of Commander Hugo Chavez, saying that in Venezuela, one breathes struggle and revolution.
My greetings to all of Argentina. I send a hug and a kiss to the Argentine people. We love Argentina, the social movements, the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, the singers, the union members, the soccer players. We have enjoyed being with Diego Maradona because Diego is all heart, all passion. Saint Diego de la Maradona.
I also want to thank all the Venezuelan people for all the letters I receive. So many letters that are good for me to carry on. Because we know we are fighting against the world's most powerful. That's what they say. But heard, they have not heard. But to victory always.
Hasta la victoria siempre.
We will triumph, as Che Guevara used to say, to victory always. Long live Argentina.
¡Viva Diego! ¡Viva Maduro!
More from Mexico and the latest in Bolivia when we come back. Join us again. Welcome back. A group of Central American migrant refugees have succeeded in crossing the Guatemalan border into Mexico, but was soon pushed back by Mexican National Guard forces. Our correspondent Hugo Vera reports that shortly after crossing the border, the group, made up of about 1,600 migrants, was met with heavy repression by Mexico's National Guard forces. Many of the migrant refugees, including pregnant women and children, were detained by security forces who were equipped with riot gear. Later, the group was transferred to nearby immigration center in the cities of Tapachula and Veracruz and will likely be deported back to their countries of origin.
We are humans, just like you all. It doesn't have to be like this. This is a war against Hondurans, against Salvadorians, against Guatemalans.
There is a woman who's dying, who's pregnant, and another has fallen. Why doesn't Mexico support us? All we want to do is enter and acquire legal papers. All we want is legal papers. We are not robbing or killing. I'm coming with 2 children. I can't live in Honduras. I'm receiving threats.
We want to pass through here. This is unjust. This is unjust, and people need to know what's happening to us all. We are human, and people need to realize there are children, pregnant women, and look how they treat us like dogs.
The United States is pushing forward with its imperialist agenda by sending an ambassador to Bolivia in its latest show of support for the usurper, Jeanine Áñez. This will be the first U.S. ambassador to La Paz in more than a decade. In 2008, former President Evo Morales expelled the then U.S. diplomat Philip Goldberg for inciting violent protest. Bolivia is heading to the polls in May. However, Washington's interference is evident as just this month, a team of officials was sent to the Andean country to aid the de facto government in the electoral process. Following the massive mobilization in Cochabamba on Wednesday, national leaders of the movement towards socialism and the Pact of Unity, which includes popular organizations, met in the city of El Alto to analyze their participation in the May 3rd election and the designation of Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca for president and vice president. Choquehuanca addressed the gathering and made a call for unity, urging his supporters to back the mass ticket, which is headed by Luis Arce for president. His speech serves to debunk rumors of an impending split, which have saturated the media.
Because otherwise the right wing would want to divide us, and they will celebrate if we do. Dear colleagues, reality hasn't been respected. If we say that right now it's raining, we would be lying to ourselves. There's a reality. We do not have legal control over the political instruments. Lots of colleagues have said to me they haven't listened to us, so we will create our own political instrument. I don't really know what their plan would be afterwards. If we are demanding to be respected, we shouldn't think only about us and our sector. We have to think about Bolivia. We have to think about our democracy. We have to think about our aymaras.
Wednesday marked the anniversary of the plurinational state of Bolivia, a day when the South American nation reclaimed the rights of Bolivia's multi-ethnic people thanks to the work of former President Evo Morales.
The de facto president Jeanine Áñez gave a speech from the government palace in a mandatory broadcast for all Bolivian media, in which she focused on criticizing the work and achievements of Evo Morales over the past 14 years.
We were lied to for 14 years on the real state of the economy, the gas reserves and the production of natural resources.
Another speech was given by Evo Morales broadcast on social media. In it, he explained that during his administration the country had extraordinary economic achievements, highlighting that in the past Bolivians had to beg for money from the International Monetary Fund just to pay teachers' salaries, and today the minimum wage stands at over $300 per month.
Our gross international product stood at $9.5 billion in 2005 and rose to more than $40 billion at the end of 2018. That means that in Bolivia we are producing more and more of our own goods.
Morales also warned that the final goal of last November's coup is still to be seen.
In 2019, and for the first time in our history, Bolivia was classified as a country with high human development by the United Nations. And now the coup government is hard at work to destroy our advances. We were the first victims of the coup mongers, but the end goal is your social rights. The final target of the right wing is you.
Morales, who is living under asylum in Argentina and whose constitutional mandate ended on January 22nd, added that popular sectors already showed what they are capable of during the almost 14 years of his government.
The struggle must continue. The poor, the workers, indigenous people, campesinos, we already know where to go. They won't take away our dreams, our freedom, our dignity, and much less our identity. The time to kneel before others has ended. We will not be afraid. The usurper's time will end.
This year's anniversary of the plurinational state comes as thousands of armed troops and tanks have been deployed across Bolivia to confront so-called subversive citizens. But the de facto government's plan failed, as mobilizations have been peaceful.
The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has launched a gender-based violence unit. This, as at least 3 women have been killed on the island so far this year.
And by doing this now, working with the NYPD, where we've signed an MOU with, they have given me the assurance that by doing this, guess what is going to happen? There's going to be an increase, there's going to be a spike in the number of reports of domestic violence. Now, usually persons will say, well, if there's an increase in reports of crime, it means that we're doing something wrong. Not in this case. It will now mean that the victims will now be comfortable. They will now feel that that justice would be served, that they would know that there's no concern about reprisal, because at times you have reports of that as well. You go to a police station, by the time you get back home, your husband or your loved one is aware that you made a report. So by doing this now, by persons now feeling comfortable, feeling secure, that they can make a report and something would take place and it will not affect them, the reports will increase. It will then decrease because now the perpetrators will be aware that there are consequences, that they would have to pay for their crime.
Members of South Africa's Communist Party have held a demonstration outside of the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria to protest against the country's attacks on Iran. The protesters sang revolutionary songs and held banners denouncing what they say is President Trump's obsession with war and condemning the killing of Iran's top commander, General Qasem Soleimani. The SACP members said that they're against imperialist aggressions across the world, and they're vowing to roll out protests in South Africa until the U.S. withdraws its forces from the Middle East.
We're picketing here to protest against the U.S. aggression in the Middle East, particularly against Iran, extrajudicial killings, violation of international law. As you know, for instance, recently the killing of General Qasem Soleimani and Comrade Al-Mandi, who were killed by U.S. instruments.
Zimbabwean students have demonstrated against the high cost of education. A group from the Zimbabwe National Students Union picketed outside of the Ministry of Education against a recent rise in tuition fees. They delivered a petition to the ministry and called on all students across the nation to join protests. This comes a few days after school children also marched in the streets against the cost of education.
To make it very clear to the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Science and Technology Innovation, Amon Munira, that the students are coming for here. He has declared war upon the students, and the students will remain. When there is injustice, the students will speak for themselves. What we want is education for all, because education is not a privilege, according to Section 75 of our own 2018 Amendment number 20 Constitution. The Zimbabwe National Students Union is very clear. In brackets, you can call it ZINAS. It's the only union in this nation which represents students. And we are very clear on our message. We are never going to break down all polytechnic colleges, all universities, all teachers' colleges. They are going to respond because we are very clear on the message.
More on Julian Assange's possible extradition case when we come back. We'll take a short break now. Join us again. Welcome back. Chinese authorities have announced a public transport shutdown in 3 cities in Hubei province as part of preventative measures to curb the spread of a new coronavirus-related pneumonia. The cities of Wuhan, Huanggang, and Izhou will be affected. Flights have also been canceled to those districts until further notice. Reports also state that Beijing has shut down major New Year celebrations. All this as the death toll has risen to 18, with 571 others infected. Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and the United States, as well as Japan and the Republic of Korea, have confirmed 1 case each, with Thailand recording 3. Officials from the WHO have welcomed the quick measures taken by the Chinese government to curb the spread of the virus.
The sequencing was done quickly, but more importantly, it was shared immediately. And that's why Korea, Japan, Thailand were able to diagnose the new coronavirus quickly. In addition to that, action is taken immediately, especially on the market, the Wuhan market, seafood market, and followed by other actions was very commendable.
The primary issue is to limit human-to-human transmission, to reduce secondary infections, especially amongst close contact and particularly in healthcare environments. We need to prevent transmission through amplification events and super spreading events, and obviously prevent further international spread. Reducing zoonotic transmission, or transmission from animals to humans, is important, and identifying the animal source or sources and limiting exposure to those sources is exceptionally important.
Supporters of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange gathered outside of court in London as a hearing was held to determine if he would be extradited to the U.S. The judge ruled that the matter will be split into 2 parts, with the first hearing scheduled for February and the second in May. Assange faces 17 charges under the U.S. Espionage Act, as well as a charge for allegedly attempting to hack a Pentagon computer system. He was targeted after he published 75,000 documents showing U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan in 2010. Assange has been in custody since being removed from Ecuador's embassy in London last April.
Our civil liberties are at stake. A free press supports the democratic process in this country. I think it's up to citizens to wake up and raise their voice in defense of our civil rights. And press freedom and freedom of expression is a cornerstone of democracy. For too long, we've left this issue in the matters of others. It's important that everyday people stand up and make their voices heard. Enough is enough.
Journalist Mohammed L Mozzie caught up with WikiLeaks editor-in-chief outside of the court. He warned journalists that this case is a threat to press freedom, citing Washington's submission that foreign nationals do not have First Amendment protection. Among other things, those rights, which are enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, prevent the government from making laws that abridge free speech and the freedom of the press.
They maintain in their submissions that foreign nationals, in their understanding, do not have First Amendment protection, which I think is totally outrageous in the context that they are retaining the right to hunt down journalists all over the world. But they will not have First Amendment protection, and that should have send a very clear message to all journalists about the importance of this case and about the true nature of this case, the political nature of it. It's an attack on press freedom. If anybody was ever in any doubt about that, this should erase all doubt. Foreign journalists do not have First Amendment protection in the United States. That's outrageous.
Cuban revolutionary teacher Estela de los Santos Tamayo passed away on Thursday at the age of 90. She's remembered for being the founder of a revolutionary teaching methodology and a strong promoter of the right to free education in Cuba. She fought against a dictatorship, and after the triumph of the revolution, she was a main figure in the country's literacy program, becoming Minister of Education. We've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at tellusarenglish.net. And we're on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Our English, I'm Camila Escalante. Thanks for watching.